Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, a Song of Ice and Fire to the co-host Switcheroo, the rereading Return to Westeros HBO spoiler edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV, bringing you our thoughts, nothing more. In this episode, we're covering A Dance with Dragons, chapters 64 and 65, The Ugly Little Girl, and Cersei. In these chapters, well, Arya gets to put on a new face for real this time. It's a little bit more involved than it seemed like on the show, from what I recall. And Cersei goes on her walk of shame. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now, kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
Okay.
I didn't know we were getting the walk of shame, guys.
Yeah, I had a couple people who were just like counting down, one of them being Austin. So,
did you see that picture he posted in the group?
Yes, about
With
this
the
is
two-
me sending notes and it's two ravens. I love it. So let's start off with Arya, the ugly little girl. She is changing into a different person in these chapters, like in the very literal, her face is different kind of way. But the chapter opens with her struggling a lot with convincing anybody that she does not just see herself as Arya Stark still.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really
have to
feels
say-
like she is starting to understand what he means by this, and she's trying to lie better, but it not super convincing, apparently.
I was pleasantly surprised that I don't remember this from the show. Like the show did this kill. I can't imagine they wouldn't do it, but I don't have any memory of it.
I don't either.
So
that when I said that I think it's more involved than I recall, I'm really like kind of just talking out of my ass.
Oh, yeah. So I feel like they had to have done this though, because it's her getting a kill. Having been at this house for however long it's been now. So it seems weird to me that they would skip it, but I just don't have any memory of it, which let me just really enjoy the chapter on its face.
Yay!
Which was
Love
really
when that
cool.
happens.
Yeah, it was a nice surprise. One of those times where my shitty memory was like, "Oh, thank you, appreciate you."
It's an advantage for once. This is a feature, not a bug. Although truly, your bad memory is a feature for Unspoiled.
Is a feature for the whole fucking show, right?
Yeah, it's definitely like helpful. I feel like
I fucking Swiss cheese brain. Yeah, I'm glad it can make good use of it. It's got to be good for at least one fucking thing in this world. But no, I really enjoyed this chapter. This was so cool to read, and like figuring out the way she figured out how to take care of him, because it's everything is there, but if you're not paying attention, you could really miss it. And for a second, I missed it, and then I was like, oh wait. I see what you did here.
Wait. What are you saying that you almost missed?
So the way that Arya actually ends up killing this insurance salesman, because that's what this guy is.
I see. Yes,
right,
exactly.
Like everything you need to know is there, and it's given to you, but it's done in such a way that, like, if you miss, like, literally the line is like a half a sentence. The waif helped me out. Like, if you don't like clock that and connect the dots, then you're kind of left at the end of the chapter being like, what? What happened here?
I gotcha.
But this was just a lot of fun to read. And yeah, the way you get a new face, first of all, I was super uncomfortable with how far down in the cellars they had to go.
Yeah, it's deep.
After a while, I was like, are they going to let you back up?
Yeah.
Like, it got like a little dicey feeling for a second there.
I want to talk a little bit about that. Stop touching your mic or whatever it is you're doing.
Sorry, yeah, it's there. Like it keeps like sliding down like an old man slumping down in a chair.
Steve was angry that day, my friends. You gotta use that boom arm that I got you.
I know.
Go find that thing.
We'll talk about it off mic.
You go find it. No, we're not talking about it. That's what's happening. The thing is going to solve all your problems, and you're just resisting it. Just find the thing.
All right. Find the thing.
Oh God. Okay, so, she is with a group of people at the start of this chapter that are sitting and being given their assignments on who they're going to take down. And there are occasionally names mentioned where people will say, like, I know him, and they just don't get that kill if they know the guy, which I have to assume is part of, like, there's a part of me that wants to be like, oh, this is sort of a, just for the cover of somebody is coming to kill you, it being somebody that he doesn't recognize at all. But I think it's to do with the fact that, like, they work for the Faceless Man, who is sort of the stranger out of the 7 gods. Of, you know what I mean? You have to, and so you have to be a stranger. You know, I don't know.
I think that's exactly it. That was my take on it. Like, because it doesn't matter if they're going to be recognized because you got all these faces hanging on the wall. You can just pick a different face. So it's got to be more than just for fear of being recognized. I think it is literal that you have to be a stranger, to you know, part of like the duties or the ceremony of this religion. The murder. It's murder. Let's just say it's murder.
Yeah. It is indeed.
It has to be, in order for it to be an act of the stranger, you have to be like a stranger performing it. I love too that somebody is like, I'll give this man the gift. I don't know him. Like somebody pipes up, like raises their hand, like, oh, I got it. I've never seen this motherfucker before in my life. I got it. I'll take him.
There's a mention
I like
from
the sort of collaboration of it all.
Yes, agreed. Oh. Sorry, I think that there's been a little bit of a delay on Zencastr lately because you and I and me and Miles have been sort of talking over each other more than we used to, and I think it's Zencastr's fault. But Austin mentions the priests sitting on the weirwood thrones. In the book it says they're carved of ebony and weirwood, and I'm not sure if that means like every other throne is ebony or if it means that they have all got ebony and weirwood combined in their structure or what?
It's two different type of chairs, I believe.
Okay.
The ebony chairs have weirwood faces on their backs, and the weirwood chairs have faces carved of ebony.
Oh, right. It says right after that. Thank you. But yeah, Austin pointed out the fact that the bed Daemon sleeps in House of the Dragon being weirwood maybe does things, you know. Do these thrones have any sort of, are they activated in some weird way?
Well, that would be really interesting because then it's sort of like the stranger is in the 7, the religion of the 7, but these guys are servants of the many-faced God, which is its own religion, right? It's like a sort of a separate deal thing, right? And weirwoods are its own religious deal. So it would be really interesting if this temple, if this particular sect, like, embraces all of the different gods. I mean, it's called the many-faced God, so maybe they literally mean like, oh, lots of people worship him, but it's all just the one guy. Like that's what the many-faced God is supposed to. Excuse me, where's my voice going?
It just vanished. The many-faced God is like, I'm taking that voice from myself. How dare you talk about me? You don't know me.
Talking too much shit.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that the magic of werewoods could exist and work in this temple that's this different God. I like the idea that these guys would be like, oh yeah, no, that's just one of his other faces. That's the same God that we all worship. He's just, some people in the North call him this particular thing, but he's part of our whole deal. Which is, I guess, if you're a death cult, because this is a death cult.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Right. When you are worshiping death, I guess all the other gods, it doesn't matter what you call your god, right? You're not going to be impressed by the different names people have for their different gods. Which one you worship is, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I feel like you would just be kind of like, call it what you want. It really doesn't matter what you call them. We're not going to get all huffed up about that.
I really I stop and think sometimes about how few religions really have ever inspired any sort of interest in me. And especially the idea of like a god of death. My instinct is to just be like, well, that's dark. Why would anybody want to? But then I'm like, death is like so inevitable that it's arguably the religion that has the most proof behind it. Like we're all going to die. We all know that's happening. What happens after doesn't matter. That's not what we're worried about. We're worried about the act of dying and death itself. And that is
it's the most based in reality.
Yeah. And it's also like, you could have like a god of sun and be like, oh, well, the sun is there. And that's also evidence. But like, it's not as, at least to me, it doesn't feel as mystical. Death, we don't know anything. We don't know what happens. It can be so, especially like, before science, when people seem to die for no reason at all, and now we can tell they had an aneurysm or something internal happened. But the sun, the sun's the sun, whatever. Death, who knows? Why? For what reason? I feel like I'm starting to get it now. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, it's like the truest thing of our whole life experience is the fact that we're going to die. Like if you wanted to hang your hat on something, like that's the thing to hang your hat on. Because to disprove it, you would need somebody that's immortal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, where are you going to find one of them at? So your worldview or your God view is getting proven every day. Because people are dropping every day, whereas the sun rises every day, but what does it do? What does it do for you specifically, human sir, that I'm talking to right now? You know what I mean? Like, what is the guy across the table that I'm having this conversation with, and he like is a sun worshiper, and I'm a death worshiper, and I'm like, well, I see death every day. He goes, well, I see the sun every day. All right, but is the sun ever going to touch you in your life? Like, you know what I mean? Death, that shit can come out and reach out and touch you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just an immediacy to it and an inevitability to it. Also, though, if I was in this universe, if you were in this universe, which religion would you be?
It depends so heavily on where you are born.
Well, I mean, which sort of faith would you wish you would want to be born into?
Honestly, I think probably the 7 is just so like the different faces of one god make so much sense to me, as it's like not actually technically different gods, but you have specific faces of that god that you pray to for certain things, which makes a lot of sense to me. Organizational, Yeah.
So, and there's also like a very specific job.
Right. And I also do like the what do you call it? The aesthetic, the ritual, the 7-pointed star. 7-pointed stars are hella hard to draw, by the way, guys. If you've never tried, it's difficult. and the just the sense of it's very Catholic, you know, like that's definitely what we're doing with it.
It's giving Catholic. Also,
yeah,
with the different faces, it's giving saints, like how you can pray to specific saints for particular things.
But I get the impression like the iconography and the aesthetic is a lot less dark, because for me, Catholicism has so much emphasis on the crucifixion imagery, and
it's unfortunate.
it can be really disturbing, like genuinely upsetting, especially when I was a kid. And
the little ruby blood drops,
you know, like, so much bleeding, like from the eyes, bleeding from the wounds, bleeding from the head with the thorns. Like, they just fucking love blood, you know? And I find it to be very, especially linked with like the problematic aspects of torture and inquisition that have gone along with it. That taste for blood feels a little bit too real. So it feels like with the 7, you're kind of getting all the parts of Catholicism that I like without the baggage of a bunch of other things that I really, really don't like. So I think the 7 for me. What about you?
Probably the old gods.
Yeah.
I like the
I don't feel like I know enough about them.
That's fair. They don't really flesh out too much, right?
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of like the old gods give like ancestral worship.
Yes.
That like, you know, you go to a tree and you can speak through the ages, you know, connect to your ancestors by worshiping at the trees. And that speaks to me. So that's probably where I would go, which is odd because I thought that I would pick something from a warmer climate and not something that was a northern faith.
The Weirwoods and the old gods appeal to me in a way that feels much more like close to nature and much more linked in a way to witchcraft, like what I currently am into. But because I don't feel like I know that much about those gods or how any of that really worked, I can't say. I feel like my instinct is to want to say, but it doesn't. I don't have anything specific to say about it. So I think that's part of the problem with that. Yeah, definitely not the drowned god. I'll say that.
Yeah, right. And I'm gonna say not fucking. What did he call him? Red Rahu.
Oh my god. Yeah, red Rolo or whatever it was.
Because I can't get on board with the burnings of the need to sacrifice humans to your god. Like I can't. And I don't know enough about any of the other southern and outside of Westerosi the gods that people worship. So I'm gonna go with the old gods. All right. So this also is cool because it's the first time that we've had other servants of the many-faced god like all gathered in one room together. So it was kind of cool to see. It's not very many of them. It's only 11, but still, it's 11 faceless men that are all gathered together in this temple, you know, handing out assignments. And it was nice to get like a little bit of a peek into how this works. And then there's one guy who is not very impressed with our girl.
Indeed.
The guy that is wearing the plague mask. Not the one that we all know that looks like a giant bird. An actual face.
That's a good point to make that distinction. Yes. But yeah, the face of a plague victim with like open sores and bleeding eyes, and I was very much like, why did you choose that one though?
Listen, this is just a meeting with your homies, with your bros. Why so dark, sir? Why?
I don't like it. Could have picked anything.
And,
okay, I guess.
Anything. We see later that there are thousands of faces to choose from. Why this face? And,
maybe it was like, I want people to stay away from me and like shun me, so that I can go about my business. You know.
And if you're like out in the streets,
yeah, but maybe he's got an appointment right after. It's like, you know, the office day to night. Just take your little jacket off and put these earrings on, and boom, you can go right to the club. Done. Considering how far below the main place all of the faces are kept, you don't want to make that trip again. He got here early so that he could have it done, and then he doesn't have to walk downstairs.
Oh my God. Day to night. Remember that was like a real thing, like a real advertising thing, like take your look from day to night.
Oh yeah.
I don't think people are doing that anymore. I hope not.
I don't think anymore. I think that, you know, especially like the pandemic just changed the face of the workplace so completely.
That's true. Now it's like from your office to your fucking couch and your jammies.
Exactly. But yeah, I feel like it was a very real thing. It was just that it was being marketed to us when we were young enough that we thought it would still be in place when we reached that point. Mm-hmm. And it was like kind of over, you know.
Thank God, because just getting ready for the day was hard enough.
We also had like that weird phase where you would wear office wear to the club, like fucking blazers and stuff,
like a blazer and like
I'm saying
goody strap top, and it was
weird. Kitten heel pumps and pinstripes, like what?
Like something from the Express that you wore to work, and then you could just like wear it to the club afterwards.
Yes. Weird time. Anyway, so yeah, he's asking her like who she is, and she keeps trying to say nobody, but he is not buying it. And he even mentions that like Arya bites her lip, and then she bites her lip, and he slaps her in the face, and she's not even mad. She's like, yeah, she's just like, I deserve that one. Enough slaps, and she might stop chewing on her lip. But yeah, so as she's trying to be like, no, I'm not Arya, she's still repeating the fucking like prayer in her head of all the people you want to kill. And he says to her, you just want to kill for your own reasons. And she tries to say, no. But when he says like, would you enjoy killing me? She says, maybe. And he's like, well, then you don't belong here. We're not killing for...
Sorry.
What the hell?
It literally jumped out of its thing. Like,
I don't believe you.
I'm telling you, I didn't touch it. It just like slunk down and then came out of its thing.
Right.
I swear to God, I didn't touch it.
All right. Sorry. Let's see. Death holds no sweetness in this house. We are not warriors, nor soldiers, nor swaggering bravos puffed up with pride. We do not kill to serve some lord, to fatten our purses, to stroke our vanity. We never give the gift to please ourselves, nor do we choose the ones we kill. We are but servants of the God of many faces. And she says Valor Doharis, and he's like, yeah, you keep saying that, but you don't have the spirit of it.
Unimpressed. And he says, I can obey. I can be humbler than anyone.
Amazing line.
It's something Trump would say.
Oh my God, you're so right. Oh God.
I'm the humblest guy ever.
Nobody's humbler. You've never met anybody so humble. They've never done humble like this. You've never seen humility like this before. Except he wouldn't say humility because he wouldn't make that connection. He'd say you've never seen humbleness like this before.
That's exactly what he would say.
Yeah.
And he says to her, "You will be the very goddess of humility, I am sure."
So let's see. Give a certain man a certain gift. Can you do that? What man? No one that you know. I don't know a lot of people. He is one of them. That was such a weird interaction. So she gets made into Cat of the Canals again to go and observe this person so that she can figure out how she's going to approach killing this man. And it was interesting. The next day she returned to Briscoe and his daughters in the house on the canal. Briscoe's eyes widened when he saw her, and Bria gave a little gasp. And I have to assume that they like kind of know who she's working for, and that's why they have this reaction. I didn't know that they knew the first time around.
I assumed that they were just happy to see her again because she had just disappeared.
You think?
I didn't think anything past that. So
now you sound like you're too far away from your mic.
Okay,
you're real Goldie mics over here.
That was pretty good.
Hey.
But no, I legit just was like, oh, they haven't seen her in so long. They're so happy to see her again. Because the idea that they know what she's really about seems like that's just not likely because it's supposed to be like sort of secretive. Like people aren't supposed to know what she does and where she stays.
Smile, though. Her eyes widened and the other gives a gasp. That doesn't sound like happy to see her to me.
That's true. You're right. And he says the old man did not smile back. He scowled at her.
Yeah. I don't know. It just, maybe they suspect. Maybe like the fact that she left and came back, they're sort of getting it. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I may just be making that up.
I think I may have misread because the part who doesn't smile at her is the man that she's actually here to kill. So I'm trying to find the part where
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the next day she returned to Briscoe and his daughters in the house on the canal. Briscoe's eyes widened when he saw her, and Brea gave a little gasp. Valor Morgulis, Cat said by way of greeting. Valor Dohairis? Briscoe replied. After that, it was as if she had never been away. And that's it.
So, yeah. So I just assumed they were like, oh, shit, you're back. And then they just fell right back into their old pattern. But the man that is kind of like shitty to her, doesn't smile and sloshes her is the guy. Is the Mark.
Right.
And she's watching him. And first thing she thinks is that he's got no courtesy. And his face is hard and mean. And she goes back home and she's like, he's evil. His lips are cruel and his eyes are mean. And he's got a villain's beard, that's a lot for like a one assessment, ma'am.
A villain's beard is my favorite.
I like that too because we all know exactly what she means, right?
Mm-hmm. For
and
sure.
It's funny because in this universe, Martin has given us people with villains' beards that turn out to be villains, and yet he's aware that it's a thing. It's just kind of funny. And the kindly man is like, this guy is just a dude. He's got like light in him and darkness. It's not your job to judge him. And Arya asks, well, have the gods judged him? And the kindly man says back, some gods maybe. What are gods for if not to sit in judgment? But the many-faced God does not weigh men's souls. He gives his gift to the best of men as he gives it to the worst. So, again, a reminder to her that death isn't about judgment.
I just don't understand this.
I was going to say.
You know, like they keep being like, oh, it's not for us to say, but you are literally the ones going out and making the kill. So how are you not saying?
And people are commissioning them to kill.
Yeah. So you're acting like it's like divine like orders? Are they kind of playing it like if somebody comes, that's the many-faced god that sent them to ask.
I think that's how they justify it or how they rationalize it. Like, oh, we're not out here picking the victims. People come to us and tell us who to kill. But that's seems
nonsense.
like it is nonsense.
It's just nonsense. Like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know, you guys. I feel real weird about the fact that, like, Arya is also intelligent, and it doesn't seem like she asks that question. And I get that she's more concerned about what she's going to get to do with the abilities she's gaining from here. But I would have expected her to just sort of think to herself, sort of, wait, how do you square that circle? You know? I don't know. I don't know.
She is mustering up a lot of ill will towards this man that she's been sent to kill, even though they told her it wasn't her job to hate him or think he deserves to die. She's just here to do a job. The more she watches this guy, the more she hates him. Like, she's willing, but I don't know if she has to will herself to hate him because he seems pretty awful. Like, I don't think it takes that much to be like, oh, this guy's a piece of shit. But by the time she actually pulls off her job, she has decided she doesn't like him and that he deserves to die. So she makes a judgment whether or not she's supposed to or not. Oh my God, I love this part. She's talking about his hands. His hands are like two white spiders. The more she watches his hands, the more she came to hate him. She goes home and she's like, he moves his hands too much.
It's a real interesting sort of like bitch eating cracker situation, except you're like artificially creating it. Just deciding like, well, you know, I gotta dislike them for some reason, it feels like. But I feel like, I feel like that makes sense, that for her, emotion has to be involved in it. She can't be cold about it. She is too passionate for that. She has too much anger for that.
Yeah, she can't just, you know, she's got to, not only does she have too much anger for that, but I think that, this is going to sound really weird, but I don't think that she can kill someone that she considers or thinks might just be innocent. You know, like there's like this, like there's a fine line within her that she can kill people who she can convince herself deserve it based on their actions, but she can't just kill anybody because she's been paid to do it. And we know that she doesn't become, well, we know from the show, I don't know how far the books will get into it, but we know from the show at least that she does not stay with the Faceless Men, that she eventually returns to Westeros to enact her revenge and meet up with everybody and all that. So she could truly never be a Faceless Man because she's too emotionally involved with the people she has to kill. She can't just do it because it's Tuesday. Yeah,
I don't know. So, okay. Then we get the explanation of what it is he does, because she watches him like spin the coins or bite them, clearly trying to determine if something is genuine or not. And occasionally when he finds out that something isn't real, dudes react either angrily or in fear, depending.
Yeah.
And we find out later that... Go ahead.
Sorry, overlap again. Sorry. I was going to say we find out that his business is insurance, that he will pay for a fee if sailors go out and they don't make it back. Then he will give a certain amount of money to the family that's left behind to take care of them. But there's also exactly because he's supposed to do that. But you know, more often than not, it turns out that he doesn't always make good on all of it.
Yeah.
It's one thing to write such a binder, another to make good on it, it says.
That does make sense as a scam, because who's going to check you? You know, like his people that he left behind are going to come to you and you can just be like, fuck you. And they don't have a man in charge behind them to like... Yeah.
Just like insurance today.
Just like insurance. Frenchant.
You know? Oh, there was a flood. Sorry. We only cover water from the sky, not once it hits the ground and rises up. That's an entirely different situation. Sorry.
It sounds so absurd when you say that, like you're making it up, and that's exactly... Madam.
Listen, hang on one second. I'm going to just spin the whole thing around. Just going to turn it all the way around. Sorry for the apologies. I know it's awful.
I'm not even going to cut this. I'm going to leave it in.
Sorry, listener. She's going to leave it in. I'm so sorry.
Oh, my God.
All right. It should be fine now. If it falls from its position, then I just fucking give up.
Yeah. Eventually, it is clear somebody wants to kill him because they know this dude is ripping people off, maybe ripped him off. Who knows? We don't really get details about that. And she, is talking about ways in which she could kill him. And she mentions at one point, like, well, his guards are stupid. I could kill them really easy. And her mentor is like, oh, really? You're just going to fucking tear your way through? Do you think that's your job? And she has to be like, oh, no, okay, I guess I have to find a way to just kill him.
So she's when she's getting the breakdown about how she can't just go through killing everybody, her plan is she's just going to take one guy out while he's having a piss. And he's like, well, what about the other guard? He's like, oh, he's stupid and slow. I'll kill him, no problem either. Like, not only is she planning on just tearing through them, but very little respect for them and their capabilities as guards.
Yes. And to a degree, that's probably valid because I just really have the impression that Arya is an advanced pupil in a lot of this stuff. So probably her contempt for them is valid. But I do sort of wonder, is there a point at which we can, everyone to see her be really wrong about the way that she judges somebody else's ability in the same sphere as her own abilities. We've seen her be very wrong about people in other ways, but this is something I'm sort of curious about. How good is her eye? So anyway, this is when she gets led down into the sanctum where all of the faces are kept.
Yeah, she's got a plan together. It's been a couple of days now of her watching him every day down at the docks doing what he does. And it mentions that she's going to slice his purse, and she's just like, I need to make sure I can still do it as easily as I remembered how to do it. I gotta practice on that shit. And she announces, all right, tomorrow's the day. And they're like, all right, bet, let's go get you a face. And she asks, what will I look like? And he says, ugly. Women will look away when they see you, and children will stare and point, and strong men will pity you. Some may even shed a tear.
Oh, man. Rough.
Remember in The Princess Bride when he's talking about we're going to do to
that
the pain?
That is literally what I was thinking of. Yes. My good God, what is that thing? I think is, what is predicted.
So they go down 54 steps.
Yes.
And they open up into this room, and there are thousands of faces. They're just everywhere she looks. There's a face. Everywhere she turns, all different types of faces. And she gets a little freaked out. A little bit.
I was pleased that she isn't just like, faces,
yes.
Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. If she had not had a response to this, I would have kind of called bullshit. Like, I feel like I don't care how long you've been sweeping the floor and scrubbing pools and whatever else they've got you doing. You see this room for the first time, you fucking better believe there's going to be a real reaction. And so I'm really glad they didn't try to play it like, oh, she's so fucking cynical at this point, nothing phases her anymore. She's seen too much and nothing riles her up anymore. Like, no, this is some shit where you're going to be like, oh, this is terrible.
I love too that she like at first tries to rationalize to herself how these aren't even what they look like. And then she stops herself and is like, no, you have got to face facts. Oh man. I didn't mean for that pun, but I definitely will keep it. I'm so sorry, everybody.
No, you're not.
That was delightful. So the priest has her sit, and he tells her, this will hurt, but pain is the price of power. Do not move. And it's interesting because it doesn't seem like it hurts physically, but there's a different kind of weird pain that comes with it. So the cut was quick, the blade sharp. By rights, the metal should have been cold against her flesh, but it felt warm instead. She could feel the blood washing down her face, a rippling red curtain falling across her brows and cheeks and chin, and she understood why the priest had made her close her eyes. When it reached her lips, the taste was salt and copper. She looked at it and shivered. "Bring me the face," said the kindly man. The waif made no answer, but she could hear her slippers whispering over the stone floor. To the girl, he said, "Drink this," and pressed a cup into her hands. She drank it down at once. It was very tart, like biting into a lemon. 1,000 years ago, she had known a girl who loved lemon cakes. No, that was not me. That was only Arya. So she puts this skin on that is like scraping leather, but it soaks the blood up and softens like it's being brought to life by her blood being sacrificed to it, kind of.
That's exactly how I read it. Yeah.
Really, really creepy. I just love how creepy this is.
Yeah. He's telling her as he's doing this that, you know, there are mummers who change their faces with artifice, and then there are sorcerers who use glamours. But people can read through those, and glamours dissolve with sharp eyes. But the face you're about to put on will be as true and as solid as the face you were born with. Keep your eyes closed, he says. Stay still. This will feel queer. You may be dizzy, but you must not move. This whole not moving and all. I want to know what happens if you move. What happens if you move?
Yeah, also curious about that. I'm wondering if it's just like it has to align so perfectly with your own features that if you move, it gets like pulled out of place. And
maybe.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I may just be making that up.
And it's weird because like, this seems like it. It seems like this should be the most painful part, the slicing of her face and what feels like all this blood dripping down her face. This should be the part that's the most upsetting. But really, after this face is put on her, she has at first what I thought was just a panic attack, but I think it's more than a panic attack. It's for one long moment, she cannot catch her breath. Hands closed around her throat, hard as stone, choking her. Her own hand shot up to claw at the arms of her attacker, but none was there. So I guess it could be kind of a panic attack, but I feel like there was a little bit more going on.
I definitely took it as like the last time that this girl endured a beating. And what drove her to the point that she went to the Faceless Men and was just like, I need out.
Right, because she sees a face. A face floats in front of her, fat, bearded, and brutal, his mouth twisted with rage. And then she can hear the priest say, "Breathe, child, breathe. Breathe out the fear. Shake off the shadows. He is dead. She is dead." So yeah, she's experiencing the last pain of the face that she's wearing. That was the worst part of this whole thing. And really, in my opinion, like I said, the actual putting on the face of the dead person should have been the worst part. And it turned out to be this secondary effect. This witnessing through the eyes of the dead person whose face. Now, I wonder, does this happen? Like, if somebody uses this face when Arya is done with it, does this happen every time, or is it only? And I don't expect you to have an answer for this. Or is it only...
My assumption
if
is
it's
that it
first
happens
time?
every time, that it's part of taking the face on.
That is so creepy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so she has this broken face from being beaten, and the girl who had been beaten came to them asking for them to take her life, not her father's, which there is something so incredibly sad about that.
Yeah.
And
I love Arya being like, so you killed him? You know, because of course all of our thoughts are like, oh, you definitely fucking killed the dad, right? She came and asked you to kill her fucking father. And it's like, no, that she asked a gift for herself. And Arya thinks you should have killed him.
yeah. She still doesn't really get the spirit of things here, but I'm also not mad at that because I would also like for them to have killed him, please.
And when she thinks this, you should have killed him. The priest says to her, because she doesn't say it, she just thinks it. But the priest says, "Death came for him in the end, as it comes for all men, as it must come for a certain man upon tomorrow. We're done here." And so it's like another little one of those moments where it feels like he can read her mind, even though we don't get any. Like, I don't think we're ever told that that's explicitly something that he can do, but he's just like always able to somehow know what she's thinking in this super creepy way.
Yeah.
It just adds to his whole mystique.
I feel like it's more that she is just, her thoughts are so predictable. You know what I mean? Like that it's just,
right.
Yeah, I know that you think we should have killed the guy. Of course, that's what you think. No, we didn't kill him. No, this and that. Like, just a lot of the directions her mind goes, it makes...
Are not that difficult to suss out.
It's just like a 1+1 sort of scenario. Oh my God, can you hear that? Pippin is dreaming, and he is snorting so loud in his dreams, and his feet are like running in place. That's so cute. So... she goes out with this new face, still saying a little prayer to herself of the people that she wants to kill.
She has these crazy dreams that night after she has this face on.
Yeah.
Where she sees like all of her family's face hanging on the wall. And then she sees the faces of like the people that she's killed. And this is like no good. This whole night she has is terrible.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting because that's a bit of a parallel to what happens with Cersei in the next chapter. But we'll get to that. So she goes up to the surface and is like following this guy. And it's not the dude that she is meant to kill. It's another man. Let's see. I'm trying to find the spot. She perched atop a wooden piling 20 yards away as the blustery wind tugged at her cloak. Even on a cold day like this, the harbor was a busy place. And we get all the description of the people that are going in and out. And Red Priest, there's another... They're just all over the place in Essos. And then eventually she sees a prosperous ship owner she had seen doing business with the old man 3 times before. And she follows him and slits the purse and is intending for this to be a really smooth movement that he doesn't even notice. But he notices. And when he turns, her hand, because she has made a slit in his cloak to get to the purse underneath, her hand is all twisted up in it as he turns. And she just kicks his leg out from under him because it's a bad leg. So he's sort of like limping heavily as he walks. She kicked the bad leg out from under him, danced away, and bolted as he fell, darting past a mother with a child. More coins fell from between her fingers to bounce along the ground. Shouts of "Thief! Thief!" rang out behind her. A pot-bellied innkeep passing by made a clumsy grab for her arm, but she spun around him, flashing past a laughing whore, raced headlong down the nearest alley. So it seems like she's dropped all of these coins by accident, that she had intended to like rob him.
Right.
And I completely had forgotten what her intent really was. And she goes back to the house of black and white, and she shows the kindly man one of the coins and is like, we're not thieves. What is this? And she says, I didn't steal it. I took one of his, but I left him one of ours. The kindly man understood, and with that coin and the others in his purse, he paid a certain man. Soon after, that man's heart gave out. Is that the way of it? Very sad. You have much and more to learn, but it may be you are not hopeless. And he gives her back her own face. And then the next day,
then a robe.
Yeah, he gives her the proper robe, the black and white robe, and it says that he's going to give her a face as pretty as her own. Who are you, child? No one, she replied. So that's that chapter.
Yeah. It sounds like she maybe has graduated up to another level.
It's so weird because it doesn't.
Like it was going to happen,
right? Like I feel like everything pointed to him not believing her, and I can't tell if he's like letting her think she's graduated so that she'll slip up and show that she's really not devoted enough. Or if he's thinking it doesn't matter as long as she can get the job done. If like the idea of her fully buying into their ideology is really more of a best case scenario, but not required. Kind of, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe like, because you said like jokingly earlier that like Arya comes with like a certain talent and that she's probably better than a lot of pupils they've had, even with the difficulty in getting her to shed her sense of self. Also, it's possible that even though they're giving her a hard time, the shedding of one's ego is incredibly difficult work. Right?
True.
And they're giving her a hard time, but who's to say that every acolyte that comes in doesn't have this hard of a time? So maybe for them, even though they're always telling her, you don't know anything yet, you're still Arya, you're not no one, blah, 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 blah. Maybe from their experience, they understand that sort of thing takes so much more time and that it just comes.
Yeah,
but in the meantime, you continue to like train and learn the arts or whatever it's called. So maybe she's actually doing a lot better than people who have come before her. But it's hard for us to tell because they're not going to tell her that. You know, they're going to keep telling her that she's not anyone yet, that she's not no one yet, because that's part of the training. But yeah, I get 100% what you mean, because like everything that we've gotten from the priest or the kindly man or whatever you want to call him, it doesn't seem like he would be getting ready to send her to apprentice anywhere.
Yeah, you know? Not at all.
But here we fucking are. And she's going to, I don't know if this is a person or a place. You will go to Eisenborough to begin your first apprenticeship. So
yeah, I'm not sure either. I completely danced right over that. But yeah, I think that's a place. It sounds like a place, but who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But she's gonna get to be pretty this time. So she's got that going for her.
So next chapter, Cersei's walk.
Oh, you guys.
What'd you think? I was very curious how you would feel about reading it versus, you know, how it is portrayed in the show.
Reading it, I mean, the show was like horrible, you know, and it was very difficult to watch, and especially learning, you know, what we learned about behind the scenes afterwards and everything. But somehow reading it was worse.
How so?
Well, there was something so difficult about being in Cersei's POV while this is happening, as opposed to just watching it happen and being outside of it. And then reading how hard she's trying to save face in this most humiliating and
Degrading?
Degrading? I'll do degrading.
Yeah, it's degrading.
How hard she's trying to still have her like pride and like hold her head up throughout this, and then the end when she cannot hold it in anymore and she's like scrambling on all fours to just get it to be over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very difficult to read. It was really, really well written though. Like I was going through it like, oh, this is terrible. I can't stop reading it.
Yeah, it's really like it makes so much sense to the way that so all right, let's start at the beginning here, but she knows that this walk is coming and is aware that she is going to have to be barefoot because she asked for sandals and they were like, you're meant to do this the way you were born. Were you born with fucking sandals? No, you were not. And yet isn't prepared for the fact that they are going to shave her entire body. Yeah. Which I can understand how you wouldn't be prepared for that part. It doesn't seem like they mentioned that, but at this point, there's not a whole lot to be done. Either.
This whole like, how do you come into like, oh, how you came into the world, you were smooth as a baby, so that's how you have to walk. Like, it's just, it's too much. It's too much. This is what happens when you have, fanatics. Like, yeah, it's too literal. It's too literal. Like, everybody, calm down. And they also shave her head.
Yeah, fully like
the
it's bicked.
Yeah. The show just gave her like a really short haircut, but a
little pixie cut.
It ended up still being cute.
But yeah, the thing that I also noticed from the beginning of this, like she's thinking back to her and Jamie and how she was more daring than him because she was willing to like reach through the bars of this lion's cage and touch the lion, and how she should have been the one that was born a boy and yada yada. And eventually I wish there was another way that I could solve this problem, but doing it via the walk is the only way because I don't have the allies that Marjorie has, so she can go to trial and be and potentially stand a chance. I don't, and I just really wanted her to like connect the dots there that she has alienated everybody, so maybe this is kind of her fault. But we're not just never. Nope, she just doesn't.
We're not doing that. No, girl. This is just the end result of all of the fucking all of the people she surrounded herself with that she couldn't, in her mind, that were not good enough to even be in her circle. This is this whole thing is a result of her being surrounded by stupid people who were not loyal, couldn't be trusted. If she just had a better quality of people around her, then she never would have been in this situation. But she doesn't connect the dots to realize she picked all of those terrible people.
Yeah.
To be her inner circle, right? Like there's no I should have made better choices.
No, nope.
There's none of that.
It's just like all those people are idiots, and I just picked out of a sea of idiots, and I had so few choices because everybody's a moron except me. Yeah, okay.
I also love the sort of interspersed kind of longing for Jamie to show up and rescue her. But also the constant refrain of like how Jamie was useless at this point anyway. He can't even fight anymore, so like he couldn't save her even if he did show up.
Yeah.
But also looking like wondering, is he going to show up?
Yeah, it's really, I don't know. There's something so pitiful, So
what she keeps. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, and she keeps telling herself, like, she just needs to get back to Tommen. And there's, like, some references to Joffrey throughout here and how Joffrey was stubborn and unpredictable. But Tommen is a good little boy. He will do as he's told. When she never really had much use for Tommen before.
Yeah, she sure didn't. Girl. Okay, sure, whatever. You know what? I'm not even going to talk about her and her children anymore because we've said it all. But she has to like sort of psych herself up before going out and getting shaved and everything by saying like, I'm not actually going to be harmed. My pride will suffer, and that's the only thing. And I can deal with that. I can make that a sacrifice. It's just one day and it'll be over. Which, you know, that's a good way to look at it, but it's simply not in reality the vibe we get. Right. So,
and right as she's telling herself, like, psyching herself up, and the Septas come in for her, and there's two, like, silent or four, I don't know how many, but there's some silent listeners that show up too, and she's fucking shook. She's like, what the fuck are they doing here? And she gets terrified. Like, you promised me that nothing was going to happen to me, and no harm was going to happen to me. Like, she's terrified. Yeah. And the Septas have to be like, they're not here to hurt you. They're here to shave you, actually.
Weird, but okay. Like, no, it's not to hurt you. It's just for this other weird ritualistic thing that we like, I guess. So if she gets given this shift to put on to just like go out past the people praying in the sept so that they don't have to see her nakedness, and she's just like, oh really? Okay,
be in the front to the faithful.
Yeah. And then eventually she is out in front of everybody, and she is just thinking about the woman who was her grandfather's concubine.
This was wild.
This was we had talked about this at another point.
Yeah, when we. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you that I know we had talked about this before, but having this memory in this context was just like,
yeah. Yep. So this woman who had been stripped and made to walk through the town naked, it was, of course, to humble and humiliate her for ever thinking that she was better than anybody else when she was a low-born whore. But she reacted in a way that Cersei has contempt for. In the beginning, before she has done her walk, she is thinking about how this woman was trying to cover herself with her hands and crying and just a very pitiful figure. And she is determined that she will handle herself. She will comport herself with more dignity, and that she is a queen. And no matter what she's wearing, no matter how they behave, she's still a fucking queen, and they can't change or take that from her. Yeah, and
she goes in with some high fucking hopes.
Yeah,
for how she's going to handle all this.
And maybe if this walk hadn't been as long as it is, she could have maintained that mindset, but it goes on for long enough that it clearly just eventually is beyond her ability to hold that thought in place. So
yeah,
she starts off. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's a moment when she first comes out. I know, sorry. it's a weird lag. When she first comes out, she realizes that she's standing where Ned lost his head. And she's thinking, like, you know what? That wasn't supposed to fucking happen.
Yeah.
Joffrey was supposed to spare his life, and all of this would have been avoided. I would have made sure Sansa got a good marriage. Not to Joffrey, because she wasn't going to be fucking queen. But I would have gave her a good marriage. And, you know, Varys and Littlefinger had worked out the terms. Ned had swallowed his pride and confessed to treason, like he was going to go to the wall. If only Joffrey had done what he was told, Winterfell would have never gone to war, and Father would have dealt with Robert's brothers, and that would have been it. Yeah. But instead, her son decides to take Ned's head, and we all know what happened after that. And she's looking at it as a moment, and she goes, "It was just there." The queen recalled, gazing at the spot, like everything started to fall apart just a few inches from where I'm standing right now, you know, and how different things would have been if only my fucking son knew how to listen. But you raised him the way you raised him, ma'am.
She sure
He's
did.
also a monster. So, I mean, I know Joffrey made his choice, but the way that she is separating herself from what Joffrey was,
Yeah.
as you know, it's so on brand for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she is very much like, I can't understand why he didn't listen after telling him constantly that he is a prince. He is now a king. You don't have to take shit from anybody. It's very much giving the woman crying that she didn't think the leopards would eat her face. So she starts off with this like guard, and there is a knight that comes and like kneels and introduces himself and tells her that he will see her safely through the city. And like the way that he comes at her and calls her your grace and kneels is very respectful and probably like making her feel better about her overall situation. His name is Sir Theoden, but later he is grabbing and dragging her in such a way that she finds very inappropriate for her station. And I can't tell if it's just him sort of panicking or if he really like the transition of how he sees her has just he has been affected by this and sees her as less of a queen, you know, like
I love that idea that by the end of this walk, seeing her in this way, like he can't even keep up the pretense anymore. Like he just has completely changed how he views her. That had not occurred to me. I thought he was just sort of panicking because things were getting out of hand and they were so close and she was starting to freak out. Yeah, but I like that idea a lot. That's very intriguing.
I don't know if it's anything, you know, but just a thought, because it really does seem like this just it really has a profound effect. So
Lancel is there too.
Oh God, yeah.
He's like, you know, he's one of the fucking people that are sort of escorting her, which is just wild because that's like not how it goes in the show, you know. To have Lancel be one of these people is just like, all right, we all know how we feel about Cersei, but the fact that Lancel has sort of like, I don't know what all I know Lancel went through some hard shit in his, you know, he got wounded and then he was brought back, you know, nursed back to health. Then he converts and confesses, but he gets to occupy this station, even though he's also committed these sins. Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah, you know, no double standards or anything. It's all in your head. So she begins her walk. People are calling her whore, throwing things. And she's telling herself that, well, she's thinking first about her uncle. He wanted this, him and the High Sparrow, and the little Rose as well, I do not doubt. I have sinned and must atone, must parade my shame before the eyes of every beggar in the city. They think that this will break my pride, that it will make an end to me, but they are wrong. These creatures have no sweeter joy in life than jeering at their betters. She could not silence them, so she must pretend she did not hear them. And it works for a time, you know? Yeah. Also, I think it's really funny how we get a lot of interruptions to the narrative of people selling food.
Yes.
We have just so many street vendors with their little taco trucks over here. Like, Queen's taking her naked walk. Who wants a fucking kebab? I don't know. It's just so... It's such a weird detail to put in, but it really works in terms of making this all feel more, like, sleazy.
I love too that the first person to yell out whore is a woman's voice, and it says women were always cruelest where other women were concerned. And then the next person to scream out harlot was another woman.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, Cersei, like, Mm-hmm. Ma'am.
It may just be that we don't like you. That may just be
I
all.
mean, also, you were pretty terrible to lots of women that were around you
Indeed.
all the time, for all the times. So, yeah, I feel like you
Every
should see who's
accusation is a
coming.
confession.
Listen.
Mm-hmm. So this, just to like jump ahead a little bit, but it just continues to escalate as she gets closer and closer to the Red Keep, because even though she's not going through Flea Bottom, the people of Flea Bottom have come to her. So it gradually gets to a point where we have folk who are much less restrained in their behavior.
Oh, it's getting wild out here. Somebody
Yeah.
throws a dead cat at her and it just like hits the ground and explodes all over her, all of its insides and maggots and shit. It's just gross. People are throwing rotten food at her at this point. They're yelling, they're still yelling whore and sinner, but now some people are throwing in brotherfucker and cunt and traitor are starting to be in there too. People are pulling their dicks out of their pants and wagging it at her. Some lady at a brothel like lifts up her skirt to be like, she's had more cock in her than I've had, and that's saying something, or like some shit like that. Like,
yeah, come look at this one. It's had way fewer cocks in it, girl.
And there's a moment when Cersei looks up and looks back, and she's like, "Fuck, I've only moved like a little bit. I haven't been out here, like, it feels like I've been out here forever and I haven't made any real progress."
I swear that part got to me real bad. Just the idea of being like, wait, that's it? Oh my God. Just, it's already been bad, but at least you're telling yourself like it'll be over soon. And then you're like, oh God.
At one point she like loses sight of the Red Keep and panics and stops still to like try to get her bearings. And the captain like yanks her and is like, you have to keep moving. The crowd's getting unruly. And she says, I am not afraid. And he says, you should be. And this is when he yanks her arm and like pulls her along beside him, and she starts to stagger. Like she goes down at one point, or almost goes down, and one of the Septas catch her. She steps in something that is like not great. We're just going to like leave it at that.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments of like puddles and stuff where she's like, I am not going to think about what this is. Not going to do it.
That's just rainwater. That's just a little rainwater puddle. That's all that is. And she steps on something and like slices her foot, and she loses her shit. And it's like, I asked for fucking sandals. You could have given me sandals. And then the knight yanks at her arm again. And this is when she's like, has he fucking forgotten who I am? I'm the goddamn queen. He has no right to lay rough hands on me like this.
Yeah.
Ma'am. But like, I guess you can't be queen for 18 years or however long it's been, 16, 17 years. That doesn't just like how you should be treated and how you expect to be treated doesn't just evaporate because your situation has changed, right? So I'm not even mad that she's still thinking this way, but it's just wild to see it, in this moment that her brain is still thinking things like, you shouldn't be grabbing me like this, when they're marching you naked through the streets and yelling shame and that you're a sinner. And then in your brain, you're still like, you're holding me a little rough. It's just so incongruous.
It's just like, it just, she is so oddly detached from reality in such very specific ways, and it's always, it feels like everything is always a surprise for her, but in a way that I'm like, well, you kind of predicted that somebody was going to, I don't know. She's just an odd mixture of like assuming everybody is incompetent, which honestly, that's a way to go through life. There's a lot of evidence to support that everybody is incompetent. But like you said, she's choosing these people. And so her refusing to take any ownership of that result is, and so here she is choosing to take this walk because she thinks it's the only way out of this, which it probably is. Like the trial by jury, I don't see that working out for her. I think she's correct in that that's something Marjorie can do, but not me, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
But the point of this is for humiliation and bringing her low, and she just really expects that she can be immune to this. Like that, just by sheer force of will, I am different enough from all other women that this won't work. And it's a very like we are all kind of like this in a way that is why so many people die in really foolish accidents. You know,
it's true.
Like we're all sort of, that's something that happens to other people. But if it were me, I would handle things differently, or it would just go differently. You know, it's like a kind of main character syndrome a little bit. So I do find it sort of fascinating how it seems to me, really misjudges the effect this is going to have. And if we're right about the fact that he is seeing her differently after this display, that it happened so quickly, you know, over the course of however long this walk is meant to have been. I don't know in time how long, if it's
it feels
an hour,
like it's forever,
right?
It feels like for fucking ever. That's another thing too about the way this is written. It really does feel we're walking with her for miles and miles and miles.
Yeah.
Even though it's a pretty short chapter. There's a moment where she says to herself, somebody yells out that this can't be the queen. She's as saggy as my mom. And Cersei thinks, this is my penance. I have sinned most grievously. This is my atonement. It'll be over soon. It'll be behind me, and then I can forget. And this is when she starts to see familiar faces. Like it's gotten to her. Like when she says, this is my penance, and that I have sinned most grievously, this is like the first time it feels like she's actually believing it.
Yeah.
Like believing that she deserves this.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's felt very much like I'm just going through the motions, and then it starts to be more like I deserve this.
Mm-hmm. And if she can start to feel like she deserves this quickly, for like without understanding exactly how long it's been, but we'll just say quickly for the sake of the book, then it doesn't seem that much of a stretch that this knight Theoden, what's his name? Theoden,
I think. Hold on, let me go back and check. But yeah, go on.
I think you're right. But it lends itself to believing that he could also see her. He could be so affected by this that his impression, that the way he treats her, would also change, because it's changing how she sees herself.
Yeah.
You know,
Theoden. Yes, correct.
Theoden. So she starts to see familiar faces. There's a man that frowns, and while he's frowning, he looks like Lord Tywin so much that she stumbles. There's a young girl at a fountain that stared at her with Melara Heatherspoon's accusing eyes. She saw Ned Stark, and beside him little Sansa with a shaggy gray dog that might have been her wolf. Every child squirming through the crowd became Tyrion, jeering at her.
The way he jeered at her when Joffrey died, which is so funny because he did no such thing, but sure, girl, whatever.
He absolutely didn't, right?
Nope.
And then she sees Joffrey, her son, her firstborn, her beautiful bright boy with his golden curls and his sweet smile. He had such lovely lips. Ma'am. But then she falls. Smile. Right? He had no such fucking thing. No such thing.
The test determined that was a lie.
She falls, and then they pull her up, and she starts to beg, "Please have mercy, I confessed." And they're like, "Yeah, you did, and this is your atonement." And then the Septa is like, "Look, it's not that much further. See, up the hill. That's all you got to do." Which was surprisingly compassionate.
Mm-hmm. I was surprised
And
as well.
I was like, where did that come from? But again, if we're talking about the effect that this whole grotesquerie is having on the people that are participating in it, you know, maybe this turned out to be even more than the Septas are like. Even they're like, this is a bit much.
That's an interesting thought. I never really considered that they even were taken aback by like how aggro the crowd got and the vibe change and everything. But like, I really like that thought that they went into this sort of being like, well, this is what you deserve. And then as it began to ramp up, they were going,
right.
Well, you know, like not like this though.
Because yeah, right. Because the whole thing is so disgusting, and you think you are serving a God that is just, right, and that his what do you call it? His fucking punishment is just, right. You deserve what you're getting, but
right.
the cruelty that's on display. If you are a devout person, don't you start to wonder, what kind of God am I in service of, if this is what he demands, this is what he wants, this is, you know what I mean? Like I'm putting a lot into one sentence. Like I'm making this one sentence do a lot of heavy lifting, but no,
really I get what you're saying. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it feels just a little like again, like I like the idea, like when this happened on the show, because of the nature of the medium. You're sort of like you're outside and you're just watching this happen to Cersei, right?
Yes.
But and Cersei's the focal point because it's happening to her. But I don't recall watching this and wondering about anybody else that was taking part in this. You know?
Right.
Other than like the cruel Septa, and you know, she had been a bitch the whole time that Cersei was in prison, and like, you know, blah 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 blah. But this seems to be having an impact on everybody that's a part of it, and even the crowd is becoming more and more grotesque and like less and less humane.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's just it's the whole spectacle is degrading everyone who's here.
I like that.
Everybody, you know?
Yeah.
So she realizes she just has to get up a hill, and they're still screaming, everything. And somebody's like, you want to suck on this cock, your grace? And a guy pulls his dick out.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when she starts to climb the hill. And this is when we find out that because she hadn't gone through Flea Bottom had come up to kind of meet her. And she's still trying to tell herself that words are wind. They can't hurt me. I am beautiful. I'm the most beautiful woman in all of Westeros.
That part really kept getting to me. The fact that like her beauty is part of what she's using to defend herself in her mind. Like that, mm-hmm. Even if they try to degrade me, I know that I'm beautiful. And how interesting that is as a way to try and like one up the crowd. And it's a thing that makes sense when your beauty has been what you have been able to lean on for so much of your life. And it's not working. And it's like, one, you've aged and you've gained weight and you've had children. But two, if you were beautiful, it wouldn't change what's happening here. I don't think at all. You know, it might even be worse. God knows.
Well, she thinks of her beauty in reaction to how disgusting the people who are accosting her are.
Right.
Like there's a whole bit about like, you know, there's pigs and naked children, men whose teeth have been filed to points, hags with goiters as big as their head, a whore with a huge snake draped around her. Like it's so disgusting, and they're so gross and they're so beneath me. But I am still the most beautiful woman in the world. And then that's immediately followed with, but she did not feel beautiful. She felt old, used, filthy, and ugly. Stretch marks on her belly, breasts were not as firm as they had been. Without a gown to hold them up, they sagged against her chest. And then she thinks, I should not have done this. Now they've seen me. They've seen. I should have never let them see.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I really love this because, like, the beginning of her walk, when she's thinking about her beauty, it's what she's using as a shield in her mind. Mm-hmm. And then it gets to a point where they've, like, broken through what she keeps repeating to herself. And I really can see how this would just, like, be part of what shatters you. Because, like, women, we really do have very few weapons we're allowed. And beauty is a real source of power. And it is very fleeting. So if that's the only place that you have ever really, like, drawn power from, and once it begins to go away, that's a terrible shock, you know?
Yep.
And it was an odd moment to sort of feel for her and be sad that they got through the noise in her head and made her think differently of herself. As much as she is despicable, it was just a kind of relatable moment that I was not wishing on anybody.
Yeah, when she says, naked, bloody, and limping, she was only a woman. Like, and there's no protection in that. There's nothing inherently about being a woman that says I'm protected, I'm safe, I'm treated with respect.
Yeah.
And she says, not so very different from their wives and more like their mothers and their pretty little maiden daughters. What have I done? She thinks to herself. And this is when she starts to cry and she's swearing that she will not cry. And then she sees, suddenly the hag was there. This is Maggie the Frog, right? Mm-hmm. And saying, Queen you shall be until there comes another younger and more beautiful to cast you down. Take all you hold most dear. And then there were no stopping the tears. And she gives a sharp cry, tries to cover herself, and she starts to run past, like, her guards. She starts scrambling up the hill. She stumbles, she falls, she rises, she falls again. Next thing you know, she's crawling, scrambling up on all fours like a dog as the good folks of King's Landing made way for her, laughing and jeering and applauding her. Oh, you guys, I hated that. I absolutely, and like, I don't, like, you know how I feel about Cersei, but I hated this. This was so awful.
Yeah, it really reminds me of just the sort of... we can hate Cersei, but the reasons that we hate her are not because she's a woman. Mm-hmm. But what she's being punished for is because she's a woman.
100%.
You know, and so it's you can't take any sort of satisfaction out of it. Because you know that what is driving this punishment is so grossly misogynistic and so out of proportion in certain ways to, like, we know of crimes that she has committed that probably would justify a horrific punishment like this. But what it is allegedly for is laughable, especially as we have pointed out, Lancel being like,
got a whole Lancel standing right there,
just being able to participate in this. It's just the nature of how the punishment doesn't fit the crime.
Yeah,
it really is all it comes down to.
And, like, when you remember that she is the one who installed this fucking septon into power,
yeah,
like, it just, oh, girl. So finally she's there, and the castle guards, like, you know, surround her. Her uncle is there. She's crying for Tommen. Her uncle is like, no son is gonna fucking witness this. And then they throw something to cover her up. And then in her mind, a giant comes out and lifts her into air like she was a baby. And she's thinking, I heard the giants could still be found in the wild beyond the wall, but that's just a tale. What is happening here? Am I dreaming? And nope, her savior was real, 8 feet tall or maybe taller, wearing a white cloak. And it says Sir Kevin had kept his part of the bargain. Tommen, her precious little boy, had named her champion to the King's Guard. Cersei never saw when Qyburn came in, but suddenly he was there. And he welcomes her back and says, may I have the honor of presenting our newest member of the King's Guard? This is Sir Robert Strong. And she says, Sir Robert. And he says, if it please your grace, Sir Robert has taken a holy vow of silence. He has sworn that he will not speak until all of his grace's enemies are dead and evil has been driven from the realm. Yes, thought Cersei Lannister. Oh, yes. So we all know what that is. That's a Frankengregor.
Yeah, it's sort of weird that she's like, I've heard there were still giants. I'm like, you've seen this dude before. Like, he has been around. He is one of your sworn liegemen, allegedly. So her being sort of like, I've never seen anything like it. I'm like, you literally have. You've seen the exact thing like it. What do you mean? But, whatever. Figure of speech, I suppose.
Right. We're going to give her a pass considering the traumatic experience she just went through. But yeah, guys, that was hard to read. I mean, it was easy in the sense that I couldn't help but turn the page, but it was really hard to read. It's such a, trying to think of like punishing a man this way.
Yeah.
It's
just not,
and would it even work? And it really wouldn't for a whole host of reasons, right? Just from the way that society is set up, the way that women and their virtue and their modesty and all that shit is framed in ways that it simply is not for men. You don't have to agree with me, but you can't tell me I'm wrong. It just doesn't work that way for them, right?
Yeah.
And then you talk about, like you were saying earlier, about the actual crimes that she committed that she's being punished for. Not the actual crimes that we know she's done, but the crimes that she's being punished for here. And I don't know, like dragging a man through town square with no clothes on for having sex with people he's not supposed to have sex with. It just doesn't hit the same.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's really fucked up.
Yeah, I'm glad that this felt so distinct for you from the experience of the show, because I felt like it was a really different experience. The show, It was sort of, there was something so almost comic about it with the septa and the shame bell and the fact that, Cersei is so unlikable, but also has been softened weirdly in the show. So there's a different dynamic with the way we see her. And overall, it wasn't like a bad scene. I felt like they actually did quite well, but it just is a really different energy than
just very, very different.
Yeah.
I don't know if I even have notes for how they could have done it differently on the show to capture the way it's written. I'm not sure that that's even really possible. But yeah, it was just awful to read, and the being inside of her head and the moments where she's just really thinking about herself and how she's not attractive anymore, and how that now all of these people that are so beneath her have seen behind the veil of her, that they've seen the truth of her, and that's something that she can never really get back. There's something devastating about that.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I want Cersei to be broken down to see herself in real terms, but this is not what I meant. This isn't what I meant when I said that at all.
Yeah. And it's such a and when you think about, like, this is a punishment dreamed up by a man for a woman, right? That's what this is,
Sure.
And there's like that in and of itself is gross enough, but that, again, you could serve a God that would require this.
Yeah.
And think that is like it, like that's the God you should be worshiping. Like that, this is what your God.
This is totally
wants,
appropriate.
You know, fundamentalism, man, it's no good. Not in Westeros, not here. It's just no good.
Yeah,
it's no good
agree
anywhere.
With that. All right. Well, I'm going to say hi to new patrons before we wrap this up. So what's up, patrons? This week, we have Nick Miller, Amber Schroeder, and Tjits. I hope I'm saying that right, Tjits. But, I did my best. But thank you guys all so much for supporting the show. If you are interested in also supporting the show and getting your name read on the air, go to patreon.com/unspoiled. And I reinstated the $1 tier with some new stuff available to the $1 tier. So if you're interested in a little extra content just to dip your toes and see what's up, patreon.com/unspoiled. Also want to mention there's been a lot of conversation circulating around the changes that Patreon is having to make due to Apple being fucks. And just anybody who is interested in becoming a patron, what's happening is Apple has made it so that Patreon basically has to completely adapt Apple's charge structure, their like payment structure. So a lot of creators who are making per creation instead of monthly subscription type sales, that's going away entirely because Apple won't allow it. And Apple also is demanding 30% of any charges that go through the app because it's on their app store.
What?
30% is insane. That's like
30%.
Yeah, it's almost triple what Patreon takes of my income. And they're the fucking platform. So Patreon has enabled either you can eat the cost or you can make all the pricing for your tiers 30% higher if they are viewed on the App Store. Now, I have opted for that so that I don't have to eat the cost. But also, I really don't encourage anybody to do that because all you're doing is giving Apple money for a thing they have nothing to do with, really.
And they already have enough money.
They have plenty of money. If you are like, I want to support this show. These ladies are funny and they, put out content consistently for years. Give us that extra 30%. Send it to us. Just go to patreon.com/unspoiled on your browser. And that extra amount that you pay will go directly to us. A little fraction of it will go to Patreon, but I'm lucky because, I signed up with Patreon so early in their run that I even have like a discounted like percent taken out compared to what people get taken out if they sign up for Patreon today. They kept me
got
on
a little
the
grandfather clause.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at you. All right, pop,
so
pop.
pop. I prefer paw paw. Thank you very much. Grandpappy. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that's what's going on. Personally, I am not going to be so badly affected by this. The people who had per creation charge, like that kind of setup, they're getting really screwed. And there's been some people who have said, like, I think Patreon should just remove their app from the store as protest. And I agree. Like, their app isn't that good anyway. Their app has a lot of problems, a lot of bugs. It's really not super functional. And I know most people who listen to patrons only stuff, they just use the RSS link in their usual podcatcher, which is a way more efficient, cleaner, interface. And it works just as well, if not better. So personally, I really feel that Patreon should remove their app from the App Store and just be like, fuck you then. Because I don't think the app is worth what the kind of like upset they're causing with their creators.
Right.
However, I also don't have the data on how many people sign up through the app and whether it's just such an unbelievably high number that it would like fuck them royally if they were to do that, you know? So I'm saying this from a place of just, backseat driving Monday day. What is it? Monday quarterback?
Monday. Yeah. Monday morning quarterback.
Monday morning. Thank you. I was going to say like Monday daytime quarterback, and I was like, I don't think that's right. But yeah, I just wanted to alert everybody to that because like I got told that this was coming about a week before it was announced to everybody because they really wanted to give, especially ambassadors, a heads up on this. And there's been a lot of people saying that they feel like Patreon is just bullshit. And I really don't agree. I know that all of our experiences are different. Different types of creators need different things. And so it can get frustrating if it feels like they're focusing on a certain type of content that you don't even make. But I'll just say that in the meeting where we were told this change was coming, it was a Zoom call and the CEO had joined us, but she is not usually there. And he was explaining what was happening, the changes. And you could just see how fucking angry he was to be put in this position. And somebody in the chat was like, but wait, what about per content creators? What am I supposed, or per creation charges? What are we supposed to do? And he legitimately began to get choked up. Like he was teary eyed. Like, what?
Are you allowed to talk about this?
Oh yeah, like I wasn't allowed to talk about it before they announced it, but now that it's announced, it's fine. But yeah, he was just so emotional about it, and clearly, in my opinion, really cares. I feel, it may have been an act, sure, but I don't think so. It felt very genuine, like he was so disappointed that they were having to let down creators that have been with them for so long and dependent on them in a certain way, and he seemed to be just like feeling very guilty that there was not a lot that they could do. So just for what it's worth, I know Patreon is not perfect. They only just have enabled things that I feel like should have been enabled ages ago, like searching through a search bar instead of having to just scroll endlessly, or being able to like edit multiple posts at once to make them all available. Like they just enabled that like 2 weeks ago, which is bananas to me. So they are not perfect, but I have always felt like they listen, that they give a shit. And, I've always felt like I'm in the boat with them. If something is working poorly and it's affecting how many people pledge, they're also not making money. So it's always just felt
you feel like you're on the same team.
Yeah, So I just wanted to say that because they've been taking a lot of grief for this, and it's easy for me to just say, because I'm not being affected the way some people are. So I recognize and acknowledge that. But I do think they're doing their best, and that they're trying to find a way. Like the fact that you can choose between eating it or just raising prices on the app, I think that's a very smart way to handle it, and they've explicitly told us, you're allowed to go and tell we can't post about it. We can't have in our app a little pop-up that says you should go to the browser instead, actually, but you can definitely post about that and talk about that. You are allowed. So just a heads up, if you already have a subscription through the app, I don't think this affects you because it's already in place. But I may be wrong. I'm pretty sure, though. I'm pretty sure that it doesn't change for anybody who's a current member. It's just new signups. But if you're interested in becoming a new sign-up, just patreon.com/unspoiled. Just try not to use the app for that. And I think that there's a lot of creators out there that would say the same thing. So I just really encourage everybody. I have all Apple products. I'm not trying to pretend that I am like taking some sort of moral stand against them. Everybody's evil that you buy things from. Like, and I have to pick what evil I am willing to work with. And then like, Apple is the kind of like interface and everything that I prefer. Windows is also evil, whatever, Microsoft. But this is just really beyond the pale. 30%. Like, that is absolutely bonkers banana pants. What are you talking about?
It's a weird jump. And like, for what? Inflation? Like, what are you going to blame it on? Supply chain?
It's
like,
not even...
What is the reason?
It's not even like... I don't know why they're suddenly enforcing it with Patreon if they reached a threshold where they got noticed or something. But evidently has been the way it has worked for a while with other apps as well, which is making sense now because like there's some apps that I signed up for, like Downward Dog has like a series of Pilates and yoga apps and whatnot. And if you go to their website and sign up for their app, it is so much cheaper than if you go and do the in-app purchase. And I thought it was weird at the time, but I didn't really like stop and think about it much. And now I'm like, oh, that's what's going on, because they're actually getting that money. So yeah, and evidently they're being like taken to court over this by some other people, and they have it's there's a whole thing with like Google as well, and the way that they are shown on like as a preferred option via Google, and that's being contested whether that's allowed. So like people are trying to fight back against this, but you know, they're in a real position of power, so I don't know how much that's going to do.
They really are.
Yeah.
And you know, when your computers are fucking $3,000 to $5,000,
yep.
After everything is said and done, I guess that's where your capital comes from to be able to be this kind of bully.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to tell you about that and keep you informed. And everybody who pledged, thank you so much. Appreciate you a lot. It matters. It really, really matters and adds up. And I hope you all are enjoying our coverage. It will be winding down soon, but nevertheless. All right, guys. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.